Oh, let's see. It's kind of late. Waiting to see myself on the screen before I start doing stuff. Happy Friday. I guess it's technically Saturday now. There I am. Alright, so today I was thinking I had to do some REST APIs this week. I do them semi-regularly, but basically REST APIs are becoming the standard. It used to be SOAP was kind of the standard, and basically these are methods to query applications for data and to either push data to them or just query data out of them. It's just an API, you know, and a lot of times you're usually interacting with a lot of times data and some sort of database or trying to make some action happen. I use it mostly for Infoblocks, which is a DNS/IPAM, IPAM being Internet, what is it, IP management solution, I think is what something like that. Anyways, IPAM basically does all your management of your IP addresses, and then, you know, it has DNS as well, so you have all your zones and things like that. But anyways, the Infoblocks interface is, I don't really enjoy using it. But the API works pretty well, and so if I need an IP for a new machine, I can just query it, or if I need to set a host record, I can do that all through PowerShell. I'm not going to show you that particular, or what do you call Infoblocks, but I am going to show you sort of how to do basic REST queries. It's interesting because they sort of have a similar verbiage. So in PowerShell, you know, all commands start with a verb, get or invoke or remove or something. And so I kind of think of it the same way as, at least for this tutorial, we're going to stick with the get on the REST command or REST API, but they do have a put and a post and some other things. I pretty much stick to those three. So get, of course, gets the data, queries it. Put, I think, replaces the data, and post is like updating it, so it's like, well, like you would update a form or append to something. So put is more of a replace, and post is more like an update. And that's the way I always think of it. You know, and read the APIs can vary. I mean, REST is a standard language or standard API, but how it's implemented can vary, so you always want to check the documentation, and you always want to start with a get to see what data you're getting out of it first, if possible. Usually you're working with either XML or JSON, it's not JSON, which is JavaScript object notation, and so you're getting an object back, or if you put it into a variable, you can use it as an object, I should say. I typically go with the JSON if it's available. I don't really enjoy XML. Is a little tougher to read and not hard to use, but it just isn't as friendly to my eyes, I guess. So I did find a site that would allow you to do some REST queries without REST API queries without having to authenticate. So if you do authenticate with REST, you might have to do something like OAuth, or basic authentication, which is like a username and password, and of course anything you do like that, you'd want to do it through an HTTPS sort of solution. So you know, you have to be careful. You know, you're sending credentials. If you are sending credentials, you want to make sure that that little lock at the top, or make sure that it is getting a valid certificate. You do want to make sure it's an HTTPS, and that's the thing. REST does run over port 80/443. Typically, I really try not to use anything. The only way I'll do 80 is if I don't have to authenticate and the data is not very critical. I think for this one, it actually does run over 443. So everything I do is just between me and the server. Anyways, without further ado, I found this site. It's called freegoip.net query, and that's actually my IP address. So now you know my public IP. I really don't care because I'm getting a new internet in the next week or so. My current internet provider keeps sending me notices saying my current internet provider is Cable One, and they keep telling me I'm over using my data plan, which is 600 gig, And I probably am, but 600 gig just seems low to me. So I'm moving over to CenturyLink, which I'm hoping is better. So it'll be drop in speed, but I don't think that's a huge difference. Cable 1 is giving me 150 meg, and CenturyLink is supposed to be 100. So I think even at 100 we'll be fine. But without further ado, so this site you can query for, do REST queries for CSV, XML, or JSON. So that's how you say JSON, JSON. I'm not sure what JSON P is. I'm not even going to try. So I'm actually going to go with just their basic query here. Oh, and yes, I know all this is here, but this is a good 5 to 10 miles off where I actually live, so I'm not too stressed out about it. Anyways, so let's go. So let's just do it. So there's a command called invoke. Now there's two commands. There's one called web request, which you don't want to use, and I'll show you here why. So this would be just a general web request, and if you do it, you can see how it kind of comes back. The data's there, and if I were to put this in quotes, it sort of works, right? Or brackets, I mean. So if we do .content, we kind of get the data back, but it's still a little muddy. So if you're actually working with REST, you want to do an invoke. So this is more like if you use Linux, this would be more like an wget. In Linux, this is kind of the equivalent where you could pull down certain data. This is more of a curl CURL. In Linux, and this is Invoke-REST RestMethod, sorry. And let's go HTTPS, and let's put our stuff there. So same thing, and I usually like to put the method and say get, so that again that's where we have that that verb, but you could put post or whatever. If I was posting, I'd need to provide some credentials. Usually, a lot of times with a get, you can just get the information out depending on level of security, but for this particular site, they let you do it without any authentication, which is great. So I can say get, and we'll see how it comes back. Now you can see what a difference, right? Now we can see we've got objects, so we've got basically, I don't know if it's a tuple or a dictionary or whatever it comes down as. You have the IP, the country code, blah, 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 blah. And you can put whatever site you are on in here. I just used GitHub because it worked. So if I were to, and I'm going to, well, let's do this. So we'll say J equal, well, let's do it this way. It's easier. So we'll make this a variable, right? Oops. Oh my gosh. J equals, so now we can just say J, we get the same data back. I'm just going to pop this up a little bit. But if we wanted to say J.IP, see, it's an object. It's actually allowing us to use the dot and put the whatever object we want there and return that value. So if I wanted city, comes back as San Francisco. So I could actually use this. So I could say write host the IP for, what was this? Oh, GitHub.com is, and then I can just say, oh yeah, $J.IP, right? And I think that should come back, and boom. So you can see how this could be useful and how you could definitely take advantage of this. Now, this is a very basic example of JSON, but it sort of is a good way to get started. And like PowerShell, I recommend starting with the get. So you want to start with the get. Get's not going to, shouldn't disturb the data, and is relatively safe, sort of like a get in PowerShell. You can do, you know, get whatever, get AD user. Yeah, you get rid of, just return information about a user and AD, or what else is there? Anyways, so yeah, there's a lot of ways we could do this, and you could even kind of expand this out. And they, are located. Let me pull this up a little bit more. And then I could say J.city, right? I think that should work. Oh, Well, let's put the $sign there. There we go. So again, you can kind of see how useful this is. So in that one variable, I was able to do that. So I should be able to do. So let's just do another quick example, just to show one more time. And let's. I'm going to clear this. It's just getting too much. So we'll make a. We're going to reuse the J variable here, and let's put. I don't know. We'll actually use mine. Happy submit. Let's do that. Let's see what that comes back with. And if I do J, perfect. So I come back, Santa Clara. So it's a similar sort of thing, but you can see it's a different IP. So now if I were to do j.ip, return that. So again, it would be just it's really handy to use, and it allows you to do a lot of flexibility. And if you do like a post, you could, in theory, depending on the API and the access you have, you could say update this IP address or this city name or whatever value you wanted to. You could do that. And if it was a put, you could I think it would just replace this whole object, so it would replace all the different values in here. Those are the kind of three I use. I think there's 8 different sort of methods that you can use, but the 3 I use again is get, put, and what's the other one? Anyways, that's it. I just wanted to kind of check in and talk about this real briefly. So Invoke-RestMethod is very handy, and it's great. You can put it in a script, and it makes the script a lot more valuable. It can interact with other systems. I've kind of been looking at maybe having this interact with VMware. You know, they do have PowerShell, but sometimes it would be nice to call a REST method to do certain things. So I'm sort of playing around with it. Some of the things, especially like in vRealize Automation and the other products that VMware offers, do have REST APIs, but they don't have PowerShell modules. So there would be a way to sort of keep this incorporated without having to do something else. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe if you like it, thumbs up as well, and have a good night.